45 years, 0 name changes, new offices, more staff, improved technology to better serve you. Education, services, investments. Think real estate, think Marshall Reddick. Brokerage, property management, private lending, creating financial independence through real estate since 1979.
Good evening, all my Marshall Reddick investors and clients, and thank you so much for joining me tonight for our presentation on how to buy investment property in 2024. This is one of my favorite topics to present for the company, and I am really excited to spend the next hour with you guys learning about investments and how to calculate different things, and want to jump right into it so we can get everything covered. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. Again, thank you and welcome. My name is Kristen Tabar. I have been with Marshall Reddick for 9 years this year. My husband and I have been investing in real estate for about 10 years. We actually purchased our first rental properties with Scott Pastel, who some of you out there may know as one of our owners. He and my husband actually went to high school together. So we hooked up at their 10-year high school reunion, which seems like many moons ago, and got started talking about what everyone was doing these days. And, you know, Scott had just took over for Marshall Reddick, that he had just become part owner in the company, and Jason and I were just getting started investing in real estate. So it was a match made in heaven, as you may say. And just a few months later, I had the opportunity to start working here. So it's been a really fun last 9 years. I'm always happy to say I practice what I preach, and I love to talk investments with my clients. So any questions you guys have, any hurdles, any successes, I love to share all of that with everybody. As I mentioned, we started about 10 years ago. We own property across the nation in multiple different Marshall Reddick markets, and have been continuing to grow and scale that portfolio. In addition, we'll talk a little bit later about making portfolios scalable and diverse. My husband and I have also done some private money loans, and we've invested in the mortgage fund through Marshall Reddick as well, which again, we'll touch on a little later. But here's some information about me that you guys can read, take a look at. That's my family from the Polar Express last Christmas. My daughter Cassie is 7. My son JT is 9. And one of the great things that real estate has done for us and our family is I have the opportunity to take a few days off and go to the Polar Express and do fun things and fun trips with my family. And we have a little bit of freedom to do that. So let's keep moving right along. For those of you who are new to Marshall Reddick Real Estate, welcome. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. Marshall Reddick Real Estate is a full-service real estate brokerage. We're a property manager, a private money lender, and we also do an investment fund, which I touched on in the last slide. We help our clients to buy and sell both primary homes and rental real estate across the nation. When our clients purchase rental real estate, we have property management in-house. We can lend to our clients who are looking for other options outside of conventional loans. And of course, the investment fund, which gives our clients an opportunity to be truly passive with a real estate investment. In addition to the services that we provide in-house, we also have connections with many other parties that our clients will use throughout the life of their real estate investment, but also for each transaction individually. So whether that's a lender, an insurance agent, vendors for future repair items, that's something management helps us take care of. So everything that our client needs from start to finish and for the life of that investment, we're happy to provide. We're a one-stop shop, which is why a lot of our clients like to find us and stick with us. Here's a quick overview, a table of contents, if you will, for the topics we'll cover today. We are going to jump into a lot of different things and cover a lot of different items. You guys have a question box. Feel free to type in any questions that you may have. If we have time at the end, I will cover as many of them as I can. If not, look for an email or a call from me tomorrow so we can touch on your questions and make sure everyone gets everything answered and that everyone gets all the info that they'd like. And with that, let's jump right into it. As I said, we have a lot to cover and we want to get started. So many of us, myself included, when you get the idea, I want to invest in real estate, you think, where should I begin? And for some of you, it might be like walking into a messy room and you think, okay, I'm ready to clean this room today. And then you look at it and you think, it's a little much, I'm not ready yet. And so you leave the room and then you come back a little later hoping that something's changed, and it hasn't. So let's clear up some of those question marks today. And again, if there's any questions that anyone has, feel free to type them in the box as we go along. So what Marshall Reddick does that sets us apart from many other real estate brokerages is that we have a consultation with each of our clients to really get to know you guys and get to know what your expectations are, what your goals are, and truly what real estate investing means to you. So in that consultation, we'll cover the who, what, where, when, why, and how of your real estate strategy or path. And we've worked with clients who are just getting started. We've worked with clients who already have a portfolio and are looking to get into a new market or looking for something a little bit different. So wherever you are in your real estate journey experience, we can help you with that. So we want to talk about your goals. What are your reasons for investing? And these are different for everybody. There's not one solution that works for every single client. So we like to get to know what that is and what those goals are so we can help you build a roadmap towards achieving them. We'll talk about your financing options. We'll talk about a time frame that you're looking at, discuss the types of properties you're interested in, including different physical criteria and location, and finally introduce you to all the parties that will be necessary for completing your transaction. So that's an agent, building inspector, lender, insurance agent, D, all of the above. And then your property manager, of course, who will help you manage that property once you close and take ownership. Now, what does your personal investment strategy look like? These are the things that we ask our clients to think about and that I'll ask clients on a consultation, and some people have thought about it and some people haven't. It kind of just depends where you're at in the where you're at on your roadmap. But when we're talking about an investment property, these are the criteria that we're going to ask about. We're going to discuss price, property class, which we'll dive into here in just a moment, property type, condition, and then some more property details, including age, story, square foot, size, is there a backyard, things to that nature. But as I said before, a lot of investors have different criteria and different reasons for certain properties that they'd like to look into, certain areas that they want to look at. So we want to touch on that all in the consultation so that your advisor, your agent, and everyone else involved in the transaction can help present the inventory that interests you the most and get properties in front of you that make sense for your investment strategy. So as we're talking about our strategy, and on the last slide we started on it, but how does that criteria apply to other areas of investing outside of just the actual property itself? Well, a lot of the criteria as we're looking at property is going to fall back onto this list that you see in front of you, all these check marks. And the different property classes are going to align with different goals and different risk factors as well. So for example, as you can see on your screen, as we get to the C and D class properties, we see a lower purchase price and potential for higher cash flow, but we also have potential for a lower tenant quality, which in turn could lead to higher maintenance costs as you own your property. And as you get to the other side, where we're getting towards our A-class and luxury properties, we're definitely looking at higher purchase prices, but with that comes the potential for increased depreciation and also the probability of a higher tenant quality. So we want to talk about all these things as we're looking at what types of property we want to invest in. If you're someone out there who wants to be more hands-off, you're likely going to be someone looking at an A-class property for that higher tenant quality, for that appreciation, and so that you can do less. Management does less when the tenant takes better care of their property, has more pride in ownership, if you will. We know the tenant doesn't own the property, but I think you guys know what I'm saying. As opposed to, you know, someone in that C-class property who maybe is a blue-collar employee, maybe they're working paycheck to paycheck, and the example I like to use is this. If you're having a glass of wine, the A-class property probably houses a tenant that's, number one, drinking a nicer bottle, and number two, if that wine spills, they're going to want to clean it up right away. Again, they're not going to want to have that stain. They're not going to have the residue. This is someone who's really going to likely take care of your property. Down on the other end of the scale, that C-class tenant might be drinking box wine, and when they spill that, they might just shrug it off and say, it's a rental, I'll worry about that later. So there's definitely going to be a difference in your tenant quality, and that'll be reflected in the maintenance and vacancy estimates that we'll use in our calculator that we'll touch on in a couple of slides. But some other questions up here that you may want to think about if you're joining us tonight for the first time and you're just getting started is, you know, there's definitely different benefits and, you know, pros and cons, if you will, to the different property classes. So, you know, part of it is affordability. If you're looking, you know, if you're ready to retire sooner than later, maybe the cash flow from a C-class property is what you're looking for, because you don't have 20 years to sit on the property and let it appreciate so that you can really get that equity out of it. So coming back to each individual investor's strategy and what they're looking to do, the property class is going to have a lot to do with that as well. The property classes are based on the median home price of that metropolitan area. Here's a map that is pulled actually directly from National Association of Realtors. This is a public website that anybody can go to. So if we cover a metro tonight that you're thinking, well, I'd like to look at something else, you can hop on the NAR website, and they have this metropolitan data for all of these markets that you see across the country, so you can get an idea of what the median home price is in that area. Also, what a lot of my clients find interesting and they like to do is find out what property class their own primary home falls in. So if you live in Orange County, you can pop onto the website, look at the median home price in your area, and then using the scale that we're going to look at in a couple of slides, you can determine which property class you live in. So it's kind of a fun exercise and gives you a little bit of practice on using that scale and how to determine the property class of properties outside what you see on our website. Here's that scale I was talking about. For easy math, the way this works is if we're looking at a single family property, if the home price is $100,000, you're going to fall right there on that AB class line. Any property from $100,000 to $130,000 would be A class, $80,000 to $100,000 would be B class, and $50,000 to $80,000 would fall in that C class range. If you do find that your property is right on the line, there are other criteria that we'll use to bump it one way or another, and we will touch on that in a moment as well. For the multi-unit properties, you'll see the scale slides just a little bit, and that's going to be a per unit basis for the property class. So again, this is the percentage of the sales price. So again, I use easy math here for you guys to get that breakdown. So this is how we're going to determine our property classes. And when you see properties listed on the Marshall Reddick website, you're going to see a property class attached to that property. So for those of you out there who are only interested in A class, you can filter out everything else, and you can do that for most of the criteria on the website. Here is a quick snapshot. I did talk about different tenants and different quality of tenant in different classes of property. So typically what you'll see on the Marshall Reddick website is going to be A, B, and C class. Luxury class tends to be your primary owners. These are executives, business owners, and we tend to see those people in that category purchase rather than renting. We don't rent very many luxury properties. And on the other side, the D class properties, these are properties that are typically located in low income areas where individuals likely live below the poverty line, and we tend to stay away from those areas as well. So we want to find ourselves right in the middle. So starting then with C class, as I mentioned before, your C class tenant is likely your hourly blue collar worker, the people in the economy that are holding us all up, right? There are our blue collar workers that are there every day, possibly living paycheck to paycheck, but again, giving our owners an opportunity to maybe get into a property that cash flows a little more because the purchase price was a little less compared to the rental income. Your B class is going to be kind of a blend of that A and C class tenant. We'll get to A in just a moment. B class tends to be a mix. These properties will offer some good cash flow, will also offer some good appreciation, and we tend to find a tenant that, might still be drinking the box wine, but is also going to clean it up if it spills on the floor. So it's a good starting point for a lot of investors, like to start in B class, a little more affordable than some of those A class properties. And that's because typically in the A class now you've got your professionals, your white collar workers. These neighborhoods tend to be a little bit more affluent. So again, those purchase prices are going to be a little higher. Sometimes the rent to purchase price ratio isn't as impressive as it is in a C class or a B class property. But again, the A class is more of a play for appreciation. So if you're someone who's in their, early 30s or maybe mid to late 20s, and you're looking for something that you're going to purchase and own for 30 years, the A class property is going to be a great investment. You'll likely have less maintenance, and it'll be a property that you can kind of sit on and let increase in value over time. Down here at the bottom, these are the things that will help us determine, as I mentioned on the slide, with the classes by median home price or percentage. The things that matter, what may bump that up or down, is price point number one. That's going to give us our jumping off point for where that property fits on that scale, A, B, or C class. And if it's right on the line, then we'll go to cost per square foot, we'll look at the school districts, and we'll look at the crime rates. If your property falls at the A and B class line, but the crime rate's a little higher, or the school districts are not rated as highly, then we might put that down into the B class range. If your property falls in the A class range and you're not on the border, then we'll stick with that A class rating. So there's a few other variables, and again, this is not the ultimate, finite guideline. These, it's very fluid. Property values are changing, not super frequently, but values change, and things like that will have an impact on the cost per square foot and the price point of those properties. What doesn't matter is the type of property, the age, the size, or the condition. And age, size, and condition don't matter primarily because you can change those, right? You can add on, you can update, you can renovate, you can make a lot of changes to the property itself. What you can't change is where the property is located, what schools you're near, what the crime rate is, etc. So the factors for the property class rating are going to be those factors that cannot be changed. Let's talk a little bit about maintenance and vacancy. This is also going to be dependent on the property class. As I mentioned, as we look at the different classes individually, your C class tenant might not be as high quality as your A class tenant, and you'll see that reflected in the estimates for maintenance and vacancy. Again, this isn't a surefire thing, but I can tell you that as a property owner myself and someone who has invested over the last 10 years, I will say that if you own the property long enough, these percentages and these estimates are painfully accurate. So keep that in mind as we're going through some examples later and talking finances and things to that nature. So on a 1 to 4 unit property, your A class maintenance and vacancy estimates are going to be at 8%, B class at 10%, C class at 13%. 5+ units changes just a little bit, and that's because as you have more units and more tenants, you can expect to have more repairs and to have more issues come up. So A class is going to increase to 10% for maintenance, 12% for B class, and 15% in that C class, but your vacancy percentages are going to remain the same. And to give you a little breakdown on how long vacancy, what this example is, how long 8% is, it's really only 1 month per year. And any of you out there who do own rental real estate and have experienced a vacancy or a turnover, we're estimating this per year, but oftentimes on average, our tenants are going to stay in place for about 3 to 5 years. And then when you do have that turnover, it truly shouldn't be 30 days per year that you're experiencing vacancy. We want to estimate on the side of caution, and we want to be conservative because we don't want to have people expecting that they're never going to have any vacancy or maintenance expenses. And as I said, if you own the property long enough, you might find that you average 1 month a year being vacant. So just depends again on location. We'll talk about this in a few slides. Depends on location, demand for rentals, and other criteria. But vacancy, 8%, about a month per year. And we hope that that's not what we experience. Again, we're erring on the side of caution here. If you'd like to dive deeper into property ratings, look at some of the math behind it. There's also pages in the Reddick property rating ebook that go into renovations, pricing after renovations, things to that nature, how your property values increase. There's website references. Again, if you'd like to go visit the NAR website, determine the class of your own property. It's a great resource. Again, we'll just walk through all the methodology that we've been talking about for the last few minutes here. It's a free download on the website. It's about a 20-minute read. And I highly encourage all of my investors, both new and existing, to check it out. It's great new information for those of us who are just getting started. And it's a great refresher for those of us who have been investing and are just looking for a little bit, again, of a refresher on the class ratings. Maybe you're looking to make a change. You've been investing in one certain class and you'd like to expand, diversify, things like that. So highly encourage everyone to go ahead and download that, take a look. Let me know if you have any questions. And we're going to hop right into how to choose where to invest. And this is a question that a lot of people have. Where do I start? What states are landlord friendly? Where are properties affordable? If my sister lives there, should I purchase a property in her town so she can manage the property? All very good questions, all things that I get asked. So let's dive into how to choose where we're going to invest. These 7 criteria are primarily what we're looking at when we're evaluating markets, looking at different places to invest. across the country. So Marshall Reddick Real Estate is in 16 markets across the nation. So we offer our clients some diversity, different price points, different unit counts, different locations. So there's really something for everybody, and it really comes down to where you'd like to be and what it is you're looking for. You know, if you're looking for a multi-unit, there's some markets that definitely lend themselves to the multi-units, where there's other markets where a single family residence is going to be more profitable. So we have a lot of different options in our markets and a lot of different strategies. But these 7 things we primarily want to look at. We've got to have a strong job market, low vacancy rate, diversity in the economy, affordability for housing, not only for you as the owners and the buyers, but also for your renters. You know, there's when the rents get too high, if it's not affordable, then you're sitting with the property on the market for an extended length of time, or you're not able to rent that property for what you'd like to rent it for. So we want to make sure that there's affordability on both ends, because we don't want to be sitting with extended vacancies, and we want to be able to increase our portfolios as well. Landlord friendly, strong education, and of course, reliable property management are going to be some key things that we'll look at when we're determining where we want to own our rental real estate. These are the states and markets where Marshall Reddick has offices, and we have agents, management, and lending opportunities. Again, across the nation, where we have a big footprint in Texas, we have a footprint in Tennessee and Kentucky. Oak Grove, Kentucky is part of that Clarksville, Tennessee metro. So when you're on the website searching, you will see properties from both of those regions. And of course, Cape Coral, Florida, which is going to include Fort Myers and Lehigh Acres and some of those neighboring cities as well. So these are all the areas where Marshall Reddick has our own offices. As I mentioned, we do have several more markets where we do have third-party vendors and partners. So if you don't see your area of choice on this map, it doesn't mean we can't help you. So again, if you have questions or you're looking for an area or a state, a city that you don't see on this map, let me know and we'll see what we can do. We want to target the suburbs of the major metropolitan markets. What you see on your screen is a picture of the properties that Marshall Reddick Real Estate manages in San Antonio, Texas on your left, and Austin, Texas on your right. Now you can see how these little location bubbles are grouped together, and they're grouped together in the desirable suburbs of these major metropolitan areas. There are a couple you'll see, one off here, one off there, but for the most part, this is where our clients own property, along the major highways, in the major developments that draw a lot of people. A lot of folks are now moving from various states across the nation into Texas, and that brings a lot of people who want to rent before they purchase. And a lot of those renters are coming in, they want to be close to their job, they want to be close to, you know, maybe a child's school, whatever their reason was for moving there. A lot of folks are looking to rent before they buy. So if your property that you own is in the suburbs of one of these major metros, you're going to have a lot higher potential for renting it quickly and a much larger tenant pool. As I just mentioned, a larger tenant base is going to be a factor in a major metro. You'll have more options, not only for professional property management, which you see right there in the middle, but also for different vendors. If you need landscaping, if you need an electrician, if you need a roof, anything like that, you're going to have more options in a large metro area. I like to use the example a lot in my live events. Lots of us who live here in California have made the drive to Vegas, and you drive for miles and miles and miles and see nothing. And then there's a house. Who wants to live there in that one house when you're hours away from everything? I don't. I don't know many people who would. So we want to own property somewhere where there's going to be a lot of foot traffic, as I mentioned, a higher, larger tenant base, more employers, things to that nature that are going to draw people there for your rentals. We talked about extended vacancies that can be an issue if you're not in one of those major areas that draws in a lot of people on an annual basis, not just renters, but other owners, people who are moving there for work, people who are moving there to retire, you name it. If you're in one of those popular markets where people are constantly moving to, you're going to have the potential for a higher success in your property. So we talked about why the major metros, why the suburbs of the major metropolitan areas. More likely to attract families in a suburb. A lot of our clients have tenants that will average about 3 to 5 years or so in their property. And a lot of these families are staying because their kids have started school. They want to go through elementary school. They want to go through high school, whatever the case may be. And a family needs a little more space. So a lot of our single family owners in some of these major metro suburbs experience shorter turnover times and are able to rent their properties for the price that they like in a time frame that's favorable, because there's a lot of people looking to move in there. And that is going to trickle down to the other criteria that you see here. As I mentioned, some families want to stay in and they want to stay in their schools. They want to live in a suburb where it's quiet, where there's lower crime rates. For those of you who have ever lived near or in a downtown area, they tend to be a little bit busier. There tends to be higher crime rates. And I mean, it doesn't have to be dangerous crimes, but there tends to be a little more going on downtown. So a lot of families, once they have kids that are school age and want to kind of calm down a little bit, we see that move to the suburbs where they're going to school, where they want to stay for a while, things to that nature. We're going to talk about some new construction properties later on in the presentation. But if you're a new family or a new couple and you're looking to extend your family, you might want to live in a property that's new. Maybe you're the first or second tenant. And the suburbs, where there's land, there's area for growth. So if there's more homes being built, that would suggest there's higher demand and suggest there's going to be more people moving in, which again comes back to keeping those vacancy turnover times low and having that foot traffic of tenants coming through your property with that larger tenant pool. If you're interested in learning more about any one of our markets, we do data packets for each individual one. So this is going to include everything from the economy, what major employers are in each market, what there is for fun, the demographic, all kinds of market data. And there's going to be pictures and graphs. And those of you listening tonight that are visual people like me, it's really cool to look through these and kind of get an idea what's going on in the area, how much it's grown, what the projected path is, etc. So again, these are free downloads on the Marshall Reddick website, and all 16 of our markets will be represented with their very own data packet. So I encourage you to look that up, especially if you're just getting started, or maybe you've got a couple properties in San Antonio and you're looking to diversify into a different market. It's a really great place to start. Let's move on to measuring the success of your investment. So we are going to talk today about cash flow, which will relate as cash on cash return, and appreciation, which we're going to look at return on investment. So we're going to look at a couple of properties from a few different markets, one multi-unit property and a couple single families as well, so we can try to cover a little bit more of the gamut and go through Fixed expenses, variable expenses, which are estimates for things such as vacancy and maintenance, which Marshall Reddick puts on that calculator for you. And we are going to dive right into that. So I mentioned the market data. This is a picture, if you will, of the San Antonio market from 1999 until now. So for the last 25 years, this is the most up-to-date that we have currently. You'll see the median home price in San Antonio here at $326,800. So that is going to give us our, jumping off point for rating our properties that you'll see here. You'll see the appreciation trend to your right in number form, and then the graph here in front of you. So a lot of the clients that we have who purchase in San Antonio like this. They like the stability. There's not a lot of up and down. And over time, you can expect for your property to grow in value. So again, it's very steady, very stable market, and the prices tend to be affordable compared to some of the other popular investment markets across the nation. So let's take a look at a property here. This is a fourplex. It's a new construction, and your financials are going to be here on the right-hand side. So we're going to not do that. List price at just under $1 million. So we're going to look at a 30% down payment. Your initial repair cost typically is going to be things such as window coverings, maybe irrigation if you're going to add that. That is on a case-by-case basis, and an agent will help us to determine what exactly that estimate for initial repair cost is going to cover. And this property, along with a few others that are currently available on the Marshall Reddick website, we have a promotion that we're working with the builders and with our lender on, where we are doing a forward commitment to buy down that interest rate. So you'll see here that 4.25% interest rate. That's a special incentive for this property, and other developments do offer that as well. So quick sidebar, if you're interested in looking at more properties where the builder or the lender are offering incentives like that, let me know and we can definitely discuss what those options look like. So moving down with this property, your investment capital needed is sitting right around here at about $303,000. So our next box is going to start with our gross rent, and the gross rent is going to be for all 4 units. So that's $6,100. And then from there, we're going to look at your fixed expenses, your mortgage payment, your taxes, your insurance, your management fee. This property does have a small HOA. There are some amenities in the community at $58 per month. And the landscaping is going to be an owner responsibility, and it typically is on a multi-unit property. So for those of you who are wondering why the tenant isn't responsible for that, that's why. Typically for a multi-unit property, it's difficult to determine which tenant's responsible for which part of the lawn, so the owner takes responsibility for it. So your monthly fixed expenses are $5,435, which leaves your monthly income sitting at $664. So this is a month assuming no maintenance, no turnover, and a month where everything went smoothly, as they say. Now the next box, your next couple of lines, are going to be for estimates of those future expenses that we touched on. Estimated maintenance at 5% of rent, and for those of you who caught it, this is an A class. It would usually be 8%, but on a new construction, we're going to drop that down to 5% as the potential for maintenance is reduced because everything's brand new. Estimated vacancy, we put at 7% of rent. And again, that's based on the area and the actual vacancy rate. Still on the conservative side, but it's a little bit lower here in San Antonio. And then the leasing fee here, 50% of 1 month's rent, and we spread that over 18 months. So what that means is if you take half of the rental amount and spread that over an 18-month period, every 18 months you would have accumulated the leasing fee for said property. And the reason that we spread it over 18 months is we found on average that's about how long that's about the length in between turnovers. So owners out there, you know that we're doing 12-month leases. Tenants are likely staying for a little bit longer than that, but on average, when you break it down, so if you were to put about $170 just away, don't spend it, keep it in that property account, about every 18 months, you will have put away enough to lease out the property. So that's what that stat is. If you have any questions about that, let me know. So then your next line, estimated cash flow at -236. Again, that's assuming there's been a turnover. That's assuming you've had some maintenance. This is not going to be a number that is going to be recurring on a monthly basis. And it's also not something that management takes out. Management will collect your tenant's rent. They will take out their management fee and disperse you the rest of that rental income. So these are not figures that anybody from Marshall Reddick is subtracting from your rent. This is just a suggestion that we give our clients to take into consideration that at some point during the life of your investment, there will be maintenance, you will have turnover, and you will have to have a new lease signed and a new tenant placed. So jumping down to the very bottom, your 15-year ROI at 20%. So looking at that return on investment at 20.39%. And you'll see that these values are at a 15-year hold. On average, that's about how long we have found that our investors will hold a property. And if you're interested in looking at what the difference is, if you were to adjust some of these numbers, you can find these properties all on the Marshall Reddick website. And when you scroll down to that financial calculator, you're able to adjust those figures as you see fit. Let's jump to the next one. This is a property in our Houston metro. You can see here, median home price at $340,000. So a little bit different than the San Antonio market, but you'll see as far as the appreciation, this trend line is very similar. So another reason that our clients like this metro and are looking at investing in the Houston area. Let's jump to the property. This is also a new construction. It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. And I selected this property actually because it's one of our Houston agents' favorites. She hand selected it, put it on the website, and said that this was a top pick for her. So I wanted to showcase it tonight for everyone out there watching. Again, this is an A-class property. So we are looking at the potential for a higher tenant quality. It backs up to a horse pasture, so it's pretty quiet. It's in a really nice area. We're looking at a $314,000 list price. And again, up there at the top, those are going to be your down payment and closing cost estimates. Initial repair cost, again, at $500,000. We would get with an agent and discuss exactly what that covered and what would need to be done in order to get the property fully rent ready. Moving down, gross rent at $2,100, all of your fixed expenses down from there. This property also has a small HOA. That's because there are some amenities that are offered for the tenants and residents. But you'll notice also that landscaping is at 0, and this is more traditional for a single family resident. That tenant is going to be responsible for the landscaping. So keep that in mind when we're looking at single families. So the monthly income on this, still positive at just under $80 a month. And then of course we have your estimates here for future maintenance and vacancy dropped to 5% as it's a new construction, and that single family home, of course, is going to have a different vacancy rate here. Leasing fee, again, 50% of 1 month's rent spread over that 18 months. So we come down to your 15-year projected profit, and that's going to include expenses for selling, appreciation, things to that nature. So we're going to see that as a number that you will, that is pertinent at the selling point of that property. 15-year ROI, 15.22%. So another strong investment, and these properties are also going to be great on the appreciation. As we touched on before, both markets have been very steady over the last few years with very minimal drops in value and reasonable, sustainable increases that make it a great appreciation play. We're going to jump now to Clarksville, Tennessee. I love the Clarksville market because it also is a very steady market. Of course, from 2020 till now, we've seen a bit of that uptick. So this is also a very steady market. The holding costs tend to be very low. Taxes are a little lower in Tennessee and Kentucky than we see in Texas. So it's a great market for our clients who are looking at a little bit lower of a purchase price. As you can see here, the median home price is $302,000, so less than San Antonio, less than Houston, still in a very strong, steady market. This is also a new construction, so I wanted to present this. We've had a lot of construction going on in Texas, Tennessee, and our Florida markets. And that, again, just relates to what I had mentioned earlier on, where there's a lot of folks moving from California, New York, down to these areas. So we've got a lot of construction, a lot of building going on to accommodate for that high demand. And that demand then translates into our properties renting quickly and keeping our owners' turnover times low. So back to this property, again, great location here, list price at $353,000, so this is going to put us in that A-class range. Zero initial repair costs. Again, that comes down to what is already included in the home and what needs to be done in order to get this property rent ready. So that would be something that the agents and management would help us with. Total investment capital needed, you're at $116,000. This property is going to rent for about $2,000 and $2,100. So we'll take all your fixed expenses down. Again, mortgage, taxes, insurance, management. Again, a small HOA on this property. So our monthly fixed expenses are $2,081, which still leaves us with a positive cash flow after all of the bills are paid. So we, of course, need to account for maintenance and vacancy. These should be at 5% because we're at an A-class property. But the estimates need to be accounted for regardless. So we want to make sure that we see that so that we can account for any future items. But with the new construction, I haven't mentioned yet, we do expect less maintenance for the first at least 5 years or so. So if you see a property on the Marshall Reddick website that was built really any time from 2019 till now, as you're scrolling down that calculator and you'd like to adjust some of those variable items, maintenance can be reduced to 5% for the first 5 years after construction. So we'll see that here. We'll take the leasing fee again over 18 months, and 15-year ROI on this property is a little lower at 9.29%, but again, your holding costs are less, and as you're able to increase the rents on this property, we tend to see that the cash on cash return and the cash flow is a little bit stronger in Clarksville, also with the lower purchase price. So you're still in the black here. We are going to see a positive cash flow outside of any maintenance or vacancy issues that you may run into in the future. But we shouldn't see many of those within the first couple of years because, again, this is a brand new construction. We always encourage our clients to look for professional property management. Number one, because if you're like me and you live in California and your rental properties are in Tennessee and Florida, how are you going to lease the property? How are you going to show it? How are you going to make sure that someone hasn't parked their car on your lawn? It's very difficult to do that from a different city, let alone a different state. So we always encourage professional property management. Your management company is going to market the property for rent. They're going to show the property to prospective tenants. They're going to screen all of those applicants, take and manage tenant calls. So if there are any maintenance items, they can get a vendor dispatched quickly to rectify those issues that you may have. And it's really, you know, you want to pay somebody. You want to pay somebody to do a professional job instead of hiring your sister or your brother-in-law, unless, of course, they are professional property managers themselves. And really the bottom line is if it's not your property, no one else is going to take as good care of it. So you may as well pay someone whose job it is to take care of your property. And that limits your liability as well, because now you're not having interactions with the tenants. You're not, you know, getting on any kind of terms where your tenant thinks you're friends and maybe starts paying rent a little bit late because they don't think you'll mind because you're their buddy. Also, I like to share this story. A fellow investor went to visit his tenants at his property down in Mobile, Alabama. And it was a nice, you know, 50-some-odd-year-old couple. But as soon as they discovered that a 22-year-old owned their home, their rent check started coming in late. And it, you know, I'm not saying that that's always going to happen, but for those of you out there who rent, could you imagine feeling a little bit like if you found out that the person who owned the property that you live in, that you pay rent to, was 20 years your, you know, junior? So it's an interesting situation that's much better if there's a buffer in between property owner and tenant so that there's no you know, blurring of those lines, so to speak. Management will also provide your statements, do periodic inspections, again, just to ensure that your property is still in the condition that you think it is and that you expect it to be in when there's turnover, when it's leased, etc. Marshall Reddick offers in-house property management, as I mentioned earlier. Here is a brochure to show you what our fees are. We are pretty standard across the board. We don't have a setup fee. We don't have a maintenance coordination fee or an eviction coordination fee. We like to keep our management simple for investors because many of us, including myself, are also investors. So we want our property management companies to take care of our properties, but we also want our hard-earned income that we put into our rental property to come back in the form of our tenants' rents. And if we're paying management to do everything and paying fees for everything, that's a lot harder to accomplish. So our management structure is very straightforward. There's no hidden fees. And this is what that looks like. We truly are a one-stop shop, as we've covered today, from the very beginning when you speak to an advisor such as myself and get started on your real estate path with Marshall Reddick. We will connect with the necessary parties. If you're looking at financing your property, we'll connect with the lender, we'll learn your buying power, we'll connect with the agent in the market that you're interested in pursuing. We'll make sure that your property gets inspected by a professional qualified building inspector. Make sure that you're with an insurance agent that can provide you competitive quotes for coverage. And of course, the management team who will be taking care of your property for the life of that investment. Of course, there are some risks associated with real estate investing. If anyone ever tells you there's not, you should run and run fast, because there are risks, as there are with any type of investment. But the good news is there are ways that we can reduce those risks as much as possible. So when we're looking at vacancy as being a risk factor, some of the ways we can offset that is, of course, by purchasing an A-class property or a B-class property. We're minimizing that vacancy percentage, hiring a professional property manager who's going to get that property turned and rent ready quickly and get that property marketed again for rent as soon as possible. And then again, purchasing in those major metropolitan areas where it's more desirable and you'll have a higher tenant pool. We can minimize maintenance again by looking at property class. Potential for maintenance is going to be a little bit lower with that A-class, higher quality tenant. And then again, hiring a professional property manager to take those tenant calls, make sure that things are getting handled in a timely manner. Property values, you know, if your property value does come down or you're worried about that, you can reduce exposure and liability by having at least a 20 to 30% down payment so that you can avoid things such as mortgage insurance. And again, by doing a conventional loan or a 30-year fixed loan, because that way you have a payment that doesn't change for 30 years. So if the value should drop a little bit or something should change, even with your own personal financial situation, you have that 30-year fixed payment that is not going to change. And then of course, natural disasters we can't minimize the occurrence, but we can minimize our exposure by having proper insurance coverage for the location of our rental properties. If you have not already, I definitely encourage you to spend some time on the Learn page on our Marshall Reddick website. There's going to be different news articles that some of our employees and contributors have written. We'll have webinars just like this one that we record and we post. All kinds of resources and tools for new and seasoned investors. So definitely hop on there, click around. You'll find our FAQ as well. And you can search based on market, whether you're looking for real estate options, are you looking at lending information, whatever it is you're looking for, I encourage you to come and find it on our webpage. And I want to thank everyone for joining me tonight. This is one of my favorite topics to present. I always get really excited when I get to present how to buy investment property. So I want to thank everyone for joining me. I hope you guys all had as much fun as I did. And here's my contact information. If you are not currently working with an advisor and you'd like to schedule a consultation, here's my direct contact. That's my cell phone number and my email address. If you'd like to go through the website, you can do that as well, marshallreddick.com/consultation. And I hope to speak with everybody soon, and I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Thank you guys again so much for joining me.